Hi there everyone, Lars here today with a special announcement. I will not be around to read most people's comments for the day because I am doing my civic duty and voting for Dalinar as High Prince of Dads. Oh yeah, it's voting time. With nearly every YouTuber I watch these days getting political and the likes, I thought, why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't Camille's Harem dip our toes into those murky waters of politics? However, we are not going to deal with real-world politics, oh no, because that is just a bunch of drivel that no one really cares about. Instead, let's talk about the politics that you should be caring about, the politics that really matter. The politics of the Alethi High Princes, and how on earth these guys are responsible for the newest apocalypse raging across the land. Oh, by golly, you better believe me, if it wasn't for these guys and their silly ways and antics, the world could be a whole better place. Of course, I'm talking about Roshar, not Earth. Ugh. Do not give humans on Earth spren, shard plate, shard blades. All of that just sounds absolutely awful. And I know, because if I were going to be one of the Knights Radiant, I would probably be a Dustbringer, as I love causing all kinds of nuclear explosions with magic. Alright, so let's get down to it. One of the things that I've actually been asked quite often from other writers is, Lars, how do you write politics? Because politics is just nasty, weird, and it doesn't make any sense, and people hate it, and yet at the same time we hear from all these other people, I love stuff like Game of Thrones because it's got so much politics in it. And yet, when you read it, ultimately, there's actually not a whole lot of politicking happening in the Game of Thrones series. A Song of Fire and Ice is filled with way more just frivolous talking and sex than it is any sort of politicking. If you actually want really good politicking, read the second book. Ugh. Look, I'm just going to make it very easy for you. If you want to understand how politics work and how you as an author can write politics, I want you to think about it this way. All political dealings are like throwing a bunch of kids into a toy room. Let's consider kindergartners. You have a ton of kindergartners playing around in a toy room. They have all these toys, all these books, all these things that they can do stuff with. They can either do it alone, they can do it together, they can do it against each other, but there are rules, there are expectations. Politics is how the kids figure out who's going to play with whom, who's going to play with what, and how well they're going to get along. Think about it this way. You have a bunch of kids who want to build this great palace made of all of the different blocks and Legos and whatnot that's all hanging around. Well, these kids can either argue and bicker about who gets what blocks. Those are mine. You're not allowed to touch them. Ew, cuties. Or they can work together to build that palace. Then they'll have to figure out how they're all going to share said palace. Maybe it is that they build the palace and then one group of kids bullies the other ones away. Maybe they do get along, or maybe they just destroy everything afterwards. Who knows? But that is effectively politics. Kids playing in a room. How well are they going to play together? Are they going to obey the rules? What are the consequences for not obeying said rules? Can the kids try to change the rules? What kinds of alliances are the kids going to make? How are the kids going to get along? How are they going to fight against each other? How are they going to play with each other? Ultimately, that is politics. Now, granted, the toys within the world of politics are things such as the laws, the taxes, the vote, how many cities do you control, how many cities do you not control, the love of the people, influence abroad, the military. All these other things are just effectively toys that the kids want to play with. And when I say it that way, that makes everything sound really horrifying. And that's because it is. That is why we avoid real-world politics on this channel. And instead, we are going to focus on the politics that do matter, in part because it is all about the apocalypse, and they will not hurt us. Hopefully. Being the politics of the Kingdom of Alethkar. For this video, I am going to focus on the politicking of the Alethi High Princes before the end of the second book. Because after that, well, let's say a lot of politicking kind of goes out the window, at least as far as how Alethkar operates. So let's do a little bit of history to set the scene right here. Dalinar, Gavilar, and their friend Sadeas went on a massive conquest to unite the 10 Alethi princedoms. Once upon a time, Alethkar was a united kingdom, all under the Sunraiser, and that was all shattered. We don't exactly know how that happened, but effectively, the kingdom was torn apart into 10 principalities. Kind of think old school Germany. Everyone's German here, but everyone belongs to a different kingdom, and they definitely don't like each other. But if they were all to unite, it would be a force to be reckoned with, and the rest of the world is like, please, 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 please do not get united, because that would be awful for the rest of us. Why? Well, in this case, because the Alethi are very warlike people who just love conquering others. They do it for a pastime, ultimately. Well, Gavilar had this brilliant vision of a united Alethkar that would make it the greatest kingdom in the world. They would be capable of doing everything. They could change the rules. They would be so rich, prosperous, and imagine what they could be. They could call back just the ancient days of glory, of magic. Oh, scandalous. But for Gavilar, it is a dream worth fighting for. And so Gavilar and Sadeas politicked, while Dalinar, being their warhound, conquered everything and brought everyone together through blood, fire, and a little bit of espionage, sabotage, and politicking. All the Alethi princedoms were brought together to be governed under the crown of the High King Gavilar himself, with Dalinar now taking over the Kholin Principality. And for what we can gather, about 2 decades or so, it worked out fairly well. Never mind some stuff that happened with Dalinar. Read Oathbringer to get all of the details there. But in any case, for the most part, Alethkar was united, prosperous, mostly getting along with each other. However, the Alethi princes and all their people did not take too kindly to this, because this goes against the grain of hundreds of years of tradition at this point. Yes, we're all Alethi, but we belong to various principalities, which are basically their own nations, and we don't necessarily like being ruled by a king over all the rest of us. Yes, we respect you because Dalinar could kill us at any moment if we aren't careful. Well, this all comes falling apart when Gavilar is assassinated at the beginning of the Way of Kings, assassinated by the Parshendi after they had hired Seth. Ooh, I love Seth as a character. Anyway, moving on from that. The kingdom is about to shatter, but Gavilar's son Elokar manages to rally the other high princes, swears vengeance, and has them all swear an oath pact that they will go to the Shattered Plains, into the lands of the Parshendi, and there they will fight these crazy bug people and kill them for revenge. So all 10 Alethi high princes and their king move with an army of hundreds of thousands out to the Shattered Plains to do war with the Parshendi. However, the war quickly turns into a stalemate because there's no way to besiege the Shattered Plains. They're so huge. In order to cross them, you need to have massive bridges, and not only are the Parshendi able to just leap over these massive chasms, but there are these incredible monsters called chasm fiends. It's dangerous out there. There's no way that you can cultivate crops in order to feed your people. It's expensive to do war, and yet for the Oath Pact's sake, they are going to get revenge. Well, after a few years of fighting on the Shattered Plains, things in Alethkar have changed. The seat of power has moved on out to the Shattered Plains where the king is at, and where all 10 Alethi high princes are expected to be. Now that they are away from Alethkar, where all of their armies are now amassed around them, there are great gems to be won by slaying the chasm fiends, there's glory to be had by slaughtering the Parshendi, there's also a chance to stab their fellow high princes in the back. What are they going to do? In order to understand this political nature right here, let's have a look at the children that are playing out here on the Shattered Plains. What is it that they really want? Well, let's think about the king right here. You think that the king would be the guy who has the most say, the most power in all of this? Well, maybe not so. Elokar wishes to truly defeat the Parshendi and get vengeance for his father, but also he wants to ensure his rule. He does not want to be seen as a weak king. Remember this, the other Alethi high princes know a world and know a time when they were not ruled by a king, and Elokar is not Gavilar, nor is he Dalinar. So from their perspective, what if this king proves himself to be weak? They could easily break the kingdom apart and once again have their freedom, and their armies are all right here. wonderful opportunity to overthrow Elhokar if the chance presents itself. So Elhokar wishes to project power, and he wishes to command respect. And that way he can keep his kingdom together. And honestly, this is actually where things get almost a little bit boring, because I'm not going to immediately jump to Dalinar and Sadeas, who are really the interesting guys in all of this. No, I'm going to quickly list off the other High Princes who are really not quite as interesting. We have Royan, we have Ruthar, we have Bethab, we have Aladar, we have Vama, we have Hatham, there's a name for you. We have Sabariel, we have Thanadal, and yeah, all of these guys effectively are just looking either to hold on to their principalities or possibly just gain something along the side. Sure, if the opportunity does present itself that they could truly gain their freedom by getting rid of Elhokar, they wouldn't mind doing it. However, because they don't know if the other High Princes may turn against them for that, and Sadeas and Dalinar, who are the guys who put Gavilar onto the throne and who are supporting Elhokar, are there as well. These guys have massive armies. Maybe it would be best not to start anything, especially because the Parshendi are on the other side of the Shattered Plains. The Parshendi are no pushovers. They could kill you in the process as you are bloodletting in order to try to overthrow Elhokar. So as far as many of the other High Princes are concerned, well, they just don't want to rock the boat too much. They'll do it if they need to, but ultimately they are going to just try to hold on to their own. They want to make sure that they can profit from this war. They wish to maintain a certain modicum of autonomy, and away from the rest of the court back in Alethkar, there is a chance for them maybe to influence the king further and gain special favors. Ultimately, these guys are actually kind of playing around for pittance, and it's one of the things that Dalinar brings up in the second book, The Words of Radiance, that he's dealing with children, and these children are just playing around with their toys. They're not taking it seriously. They're basically acting like all of the kindergartners back in the toy room, and not taking it seriously as adults and men who are in the middle of war, what they are truly dealing with. Which is why in the books, the drama is really between Dalinar and Sadeas. Now remember this, Sadeas helped to unite Alethkar under Gavilar and Dalinar. He is a warrior who shared their old vision. However, now that Gavilar is dead, and he doesn't quite respect Dalinar due to some of the visions and dreams that Dalinar is having, and he's no longer just going out slaughtering people willy-nilly, Sadeas thinks, you know what, this whole vision, it was the right thing. Uniting Alethkar was the right thing to do, but these guys, the Colin family, can't cut it anymore. We've got to get rid of them. And I too do remember a time of war and of conquest. What if I was now the one to conquer everything? What if I was the one who could control everything? And so Sadeas begins to maneuver politically to capture the ear of Elhokar, to make sure that he is the most trusted servant and counselor to the king. That way, when the time does present itself, he will be in the closest spot to King Elhokar, so that way he can kill him and take the throne for himself. The only one to stand in his way is Dalinar. Now, Dalinar, for his part, is all about preserving the Alethkar kingdom as a whole. He, of course, is going to support his nephew. He wants a strong Alethkar united, all as one, under the crown of the king. However, Dalinar has begun to see things a little bit differently. Blessed or cursed by dreams and visions from the Almighty himself that roll around during the high storms, Dalinar is receiving visions of another time, of other people, of the Knights Radiant who once wielded magic across the world and kept the world safe from evil and from monsters of the apocalypse. And he is told in his dreams that such a time is coming again, that soon a new apocalypse will arise, and they need to be ready. So Dalinar is trying to think big. How can I keep Alethkar united and strong to face down this great evil that is about to come? How can I help elevate us from all of this silly playing around and just nabbing for scraps and trying to just protect what is mine? Oh, mine is mine. But rather, let's think about the bigger picture here. How is Dalinar going to get that across to people? Well, this is then where the politicking really comes in. In order to keep Alethkar truly united, Dalinar needs to keep Sadeas as a close friend. What he's realized is that as Sadeas has tried to position himself as the most trusted servant and counselor to King Elhokar, he has made sure that all the other High Princes know to either back off or to get into his pockets. This means that whatever Sadeas says, most of the other High Princes will do. If Dalinar wishes to truly unite Alethkar and prepare themselves for the next apocalypse, he will need Sadeas as a friend. As such, he asks Sadeas to work together with him in connection to fight against the Parshendi, to prove that unity within Alethkar is indeed possible. One of the reasons why this hasn't been possible before is because all of the other High Princes wished to have the honor of avenging the king, which then turned into having the honor of slaying the Parshendi and stealing their gem hearts in order to make themselves fantastically rich. Dalinar wants to put those games aside, and he feels that the best way that he can do that is by working together with Sadeas. For Sadeas, this is perfect because he needs to get rid of Dalinar. So, of course, he goes along with it. He goes along with the alliance until he has the perfect time to stab Dalinar in the back. He does this at the Battle of the Tower, which I'm just going to say as a quick aside, I really one of these days want to do a full-on battle analysis of the Tower, because that battle, I believe, is the best battle that Brandon Sanderson has ever written. And he's written some amazing battles, some huge battles with magic and the likes, but ultimately the battle at the Tower is just, oh my gosh, it is the perfect blend of fantasy and of real-world strategy and politicking. It is incredible! But getting back to it, Sadeas betrays Dalinar at the Battle of the Tower and nearly wipes out the entire Kholin army and or almost half of the Kholin family in the process. Dalinar is saved by our good boy Kaladin and is brought back to the war camps, where there he confronts Sadeas and says, "Our alliance is broken, and I am no longer going to play your game, Sadeas." So he goes straight to his nephew and says, "Sadeas betrayed me, this is not a good thing, and do not believe for 1 second that he won't do the same to you. So now we're going to play differently. I'm going to take away their games and their toys. You are going to promote me to a special position wherein I can now control the war." So, Dalinar, being promoted now, is able to order the different Alethi war camps to work in conjunction with each other, which they don't want to do. They'd rather pay a hefty fine rather than work with each other. So that kind of sucks right there. So instead, what Dalinar decides to do is he's going to take away from them their pride and their joy and their ability to take gem hearts. He is going to take away their magical armor, shard plate, and their magical weapons, the shard blades. And he does this by ordering his son Adolin to go and win those in high stakes duels and steal all of the special toys that these high princes have and consolidate them all under Kholin control, thereby saying, hey, look, if you guys want to get anything done, you're going to play with me. This is effectively Dalinar saying, okay, then no, we were supposed to all play together nice and fine here in the toy room. No one's getting along. They're all trying to hurt each other. So fine, I'm going to take all the toys for myself, and if y'all want to play, you've got to play with me. And years ago, I actually did a video about Adolin's epic duel to do all of this. And yes, back then I called him Adolin. I actually still think that Adolin sounds way better than Adolin, but whatever. Semantics aside, that's an interesting video that I highly recommend you go check out, even though it's definitely one of my older ones. Now then, with that all done, Dalinar quickly amasses most of the toys, not all of them within the kingdom. He has these incredible weapons of shard plate and shard blade, which he can now use to great effectiveness to make his army the most powerful there on the Shattered Plains. However, he's not just simply taking their toys and expecting them to play nicely, because these are a bunch of children he's working with. Dalinar at the same time begins to politic in the means of appealing to people's sense of honor, their sense of duty, and their sense of self-preservation, by which he is able to win over Aladar and Royan, and Sabarial. We shouldn't forget Sabarial, though Sabarial's a bit of an interesting character because he truly is in it all for himself. Yeah, all the way down to the end, but even Dalinar points out, like, if you were all that self-serving, you wouldn't have come with me almost to certain death in the middle of the Shattered Plains during a great ice storm. To which Sabarial's like, yeah, maybe I do, in some kind of way wish to believe that we can be honorable men. Maybe that's really what I'm hoping for, which is a great moment. I love the end battle in the Words of Radiance. It's just so dang good. So Dalinar is being actually a very interesting, very savvy politician, even though he himself doesn't see himself as a politician, where he's not just simply using war games and threats and duels to get what he wants, but he also appeals to shared values that others have, inviting them to join him, rather than just simply trying to beat them over the head in order for them to join him. So here, the toys that Dalinar is playing with is not just the shard blade and shard plate, which is what everyone else seems to be focusing on. He's also playing with the toys of values, of ideas, of dreams. And those can be very powerful tools in politics. I mean, you just think about it right here. What are some of the great political movements that have shaped the world, both real and fictional? It's not just simply, hey, there's this marriage now that has changed things. Or, hey, there's this new weapon and it changes things. Hey, there's this war and it changes things. It is values, it is ideas, it is dreams, which are some of the biggest tools and some of the biggest items, some of the greatest toys to be had within politics. And one of the things that many politicians try to do is they try to change what those toys are, or try to take them from other people. Because if you can steal a person's virtues, values, dreams, and ideas, you leave them nothing more than a shell. Now then, like I said, I was not going to go too far into the politics of the Alethi people because, well, we're 4 books in. After book 2, a whole lot changes. But it's great to see how Dalinar is able to lead a united army of 4 different principalities to face the apocalypse against all odds. And he did it not just through the strength of arms and because he's Dalinar, the Black Thorn by the Almighty. No, it's because Dalinar played a very savvy game of politicking and beat Sadeas. Even though Sadeas believes that he's the one winning the entire time, Dalinar wins because Dalinar is the one who capitalizes on the toys of virtues, dreams, values, and ideas. So for you, my dear novice authors out there, when it comes to writing politics, just think about that. That politics isn't just simply about who has the better marriage, who has the greater political connections, who has the most money, who has the biggest bomb. While those things do indeed change the playing field of the political landscape, politics is so much more than that. Politics is about understanding the different people in play. It is about knowing what they want. It's about understanding where you can compromise. It's also about understanding where you cannot compromise. It's about knowing values, ideas, dreams. Where do you share those and where are you opposed? And where you can merge values, where you can compromise, is normally where people in the world of politics, both real and fictional, can get along. Where they refuse to compromise and where they refuse to share and understand is normally where things tend to fall apart, both in reality and in fiction. You as the author need to understand what are the toys that your political characters are playing with or fighting over. That block is a bomb. But wait, they don't just want that one block. That's just stupid because no one kid just wants their own little block. Sure, some kids are very happy to have their cars and just vroom, vroom, vroom them around, but it's usually a couple of cars. What are those cars? Do they represent the desire for more wealth? Do they also represent the desire for greater security? And does one also maybe represent a particular religious view, perhaps? Those things are all toys to be played with, toys to be accumulated, or toys to be shared within your political games. So again, if you really want to understand how to write politics, think of your characters and what they want and what they have as children in a toy room. What are the rules? What's the setting? Who's there? What are they playing with or what are they fighting over? Put it down, boil it down to that, and think again about kids just getting along together or not getting along together within a toy room, and it really makes politics make sense. Doesn't take away how messy and ridiculous they are most of the time, but it makes sense of it. And by being able, like if you're thinking, well, I want to have this dynamic between kingdoms and the internal politics and drama, how do I make sense of all of that without pulling out all of my hair? Boil it down to kids in a toy room. Each thing that the characters want is a different toy. And how does that all come together? that is a great conversation to be had, and I think that that is one that we should definitely start in the comments, maybe even have in a live stream later on down the road. But before I wrap up, just a quick little thing right here, because let me get out a little beef. I have seen so many YouTubers, regardless of what their content is, suddenly switching on over to talking about politics, as if all of us now are just savants at all things political. And let me just say this, it's making it really difficult to enjoy a lot of fantastic channels that normally have fantastic insights into things about entertainment, storytelling, just stuff that's happening out there in the world, building pools, knitting. Who knew that all of these things could suddenly become political? Just because you can make anything in politics a toy in some kid's room and yada yada, go play with it, as I've said, what do the kids want, does not mean that we should suddenly take the things that we do and turn it all political. Politics is divisive. And while it's fun to talk about fictional politics, I think that for real world politics, if we don't it's fine. I think it's perfectly fine to have an opinion, and you should have an opinion. We should educate ourselves, and we should act upon that. If you live in a democracy, you should take part in it. And yeah, that's my personal belief. That's my personal take on it. But we don't really need to go much further than that. You don't need to be some grandiose champion. It's not really going to suddenly grow your numbers either. And you're not going to win anyone over by taking your bully stick or bully pulpit moment and beating people over the head with it, saying, vote this way or vote that way. No, I just don't like it. And I'm just seeing so much of it that's why I'm going to be a little bit silly and talk about the politics of Alethkar. Because, in all honesty, I actually might be able to do a little bit more good than getting neck deep into the mud and mire of real world politics. I know it's a little bit of a downer way to close this episode right here, close this little video, but I just think it has to be said. We at Camille's Harem, we don't care what your politics are. We care that you are a good person, that you do your best to be the best author that you can be and bring your stories to life, because ultimately, one of the best ways that we can shape the world for better, for good, is that we interact with other people, that we do good for other people. And if you have a story to share, chances are your story is going to help someone out. You don't know how, you don't know in what way, and you don't know who. It could be someone that you're actually a political rival with. But your story, when you write it well, with fantastic characters and a great plot, whatever it be, romance, drama, murder, mystery, action, fantasy, isekai, whatever it is, if you write a great story, you're going to do something good for other people. And when other people have something good in their life, it inspires them to also be better. And I think that can go a whole lot further than just fighting over divisive politics. In our own real lives, away from Camille's Harem, sure, we get involved in all different kinds of things. But that's not what this channel's about. This channel's about helping people become the best authors that they can be. Because you need your stories. Your stories need you. And the world most definitely needs your stories. So, with all of that being said, thank you guys. Thank you so much for listening to this pontification, for this rant, for this babbling on of politics that you might not even care about. Put to fantastic gameplay from Elden Ring. Woohoo! But we appreciate so much that you're here with us. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.